are you? And our first question comes to us this week from Mark Reiser. Mark asks, hey, with Disneyland reopening theme parks on July 17th, would you feel safe visiting this summer? It is a very important question because there's still so much unknown. There's so much to be concerned about, that's for sure. And guys, this is a far greater question that we're going to cover, I think, even more in depth because there's a lot to talk about here. First and foremost, we did take a poll asking our Kingdom Report audience, hey, do you think that Disneyland reopening on July 17th, is that something that you're interested in? Your thoughts? And 75% you see there says finally, 25% says a little too soon for them, but overwhelmingly, finally, people are excited. We kind of expected that. I mean, this being a diehard Disney fan audience, I mean, who wouldn't want to see their favorite place in the world reopen? But in addition to that, I think it's important to also consider everybody in this equation, and we'll start talking here in just a moment about what cast members are feeling at the Disneyland Resort in terms of returning to the property, as this has now been announced officially, and they know that they, to a big degree, are returning, and only a segment of them to start with, but that many of them are returning. But first, let's get some reactions here. Garrett, Disneyland's reopening. Would you feel safe visiting this summer?
For myself, I would. Of course, when it comes to safety, we all take it differently. Some are a little bit more cautious, while some are a little bit more of a daredevil. For myself, when it comes to swimming, I jump in feet first and submerge myself. So for Disney, their number one concern is always the safety of their guests and cast members. And so from working there and going there all these years, I feel that they're doing the best they can to make this as safe as possible. I know many people won't agree with me, but if I have the opportunity to go opening day, I probably would if I could, just because I miss Disney, and I know that they're doing the best they can to keep it safe. I think they'll be better at enforcing the face mask and social distancing than they may have been in the past at Disney Springs, just because the parks are just so much more important. You're going to have a lot of security walking around, and I think they are going to be on top of everything. Like, one of my closest friends, Chris, he was in my college program with me, one of my roommates, he was custodial, and even when I would see him in the parks, he would be working his tail off to make sure everything was clean. He'd be sweeping, wiping down trash cans. He knew what he was doing, and the custodial staff, the housekeeping staff, they are without a doubt some of the hardest working and most dedicated cast members out there. So I think they're making this place clean. What it really comes down to is, are we doing the best we can individually? So that is the big question. But for myself, I would feel safe to visit there, and I plan to as soon as I can, really. But first, I got to get back to work in Florida first.
Sure thing. And personal responsibility, you're right, plays a big factor in all of this. As a place like Disneyland reopens, you bring in all kinds of populations, all kinds of demographics, all kinds of people from all sorts of places who want to come experience that magic. And not everybody sees things the same way. Katrina, are you somebody that would feel comfortable visiting Disneyland this summer?
Not yet. I think it's too soon. With Orange County just announcing that they're eliminating the whole mask wearing.
They're not requiring masks.
They're not requiring masks anymore in public. So that scares me a little bit, just because in Disneyland, we're all kind of locals, and a lot of the people that show up to Disneyland are people that live like in Orange County and all those areas. So I feel like I'm a little nervous for the cast members who have to be in the front of the line that are in the parks, but then have to deal with people that, in grocery shopping, because they all live kind of nearby, and no one's going to be wearing masks. Everybody goes out to restaurants. No one's going to be wearing masks. We don't even know what how the coronavirus is going to be in the next few weeks to a month, if it's going to spike up again because people in Orange County aren't going to be wearing masks. And it's a little frightening to see that happen. And then you get the people that are going to go to Disneyland not thinking that masks are going to be required because Orange County doesn't require masks. And then you're going to have those kinds of people, those Karens.
And I could see them getting upset at cast members who are trying to get them to follow the rules, and them just saying, well, Orange County doesn't say that I have to. So why, people don't realize that private property is private property, and they can make you do whatever they want. so many businesses say, no shirt, no shoes, no service, like, and people don't get upset over that. Like, oh, you're taking away my American rights. Like, no, that's not the case. It's just cleanliness. It's just trying to protect one another. And I would just hope that everybody would try and follow the rules. But I think that was a huge problem. I think that's going to be a huge problem. And I can't believe Orange County has done that. It's a little scary.
Yeah. So that's why I wouldn't want to go in the summer, just because we're not ready yet. I think everybody's trying to push for the economy to spike back up again. And we just don't even know the data yet, with all these riots that happen in California. People are starting to find out that more people are getting coronavirus because of, who knows, because of the riots, because of
everybody's
the
been
protests
together,
and stuff, like people being in close proximities. We don't know yet. And so for Disney to open and have these, and like Tyler said, Disney's going to require a mask. OC doesn't require a mask. So if people show up with no mask, Disney is going to be the bad guy and make them wear a mask. And, they're going to hire those, what are they called? The mask enforcing people.
The Corona Squad.
Yeah, the Corona Squad in the parks. And so it's just like, I see that they're going to try to help, but again, like, I think they're just trying to hire those people to make us feel better.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're really going to be enforcing it. And if someone refuses to wear a mask, they're not going to take them aside and kick them out of the park. They're just going to kind of like let them be, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I want to reference that for clarity's sake, the county of Orange that Disneyland resides in did just make an announcement, as this happens to be the first official weekend where the majority of Orange County has reopened out of all of this pandemic madness, and they just took the position of what the state of California takes the position as, and that is they recommend you wear a mask, but they're not saying you have to wear a mask. They're not saying that everybody should be wearing a mask outside. It's a recommendation at this point. And for the sake of all the arguments that you continue to hear when it comes to face masks, this tells you just how together everything is. The World Health Organization website right now, you can go take a look, says that if you are somebody who takes care of someone that has COVID-19 or you're a healthcare worker, then you should wear a mask, but otherwise it's not necessary. You go to the CDC website and it says it's absolutely necessary to ensure that you are not putting other people in danger. So you have these two top health authorities that we're supposed to be looking at in terms of examples, in terms of understanding how to deal with this. In the meantime, they can't agree. And then you have everybody shaming each other for one camp or another. At this point, it's kind of ridiculous on all fronts to be, arguing with each other, to be shaming each other, because this continues to just develop day to day. Things keep changing. We keep hearing now asymptomatic people potentially don't spread it at all. What? We just spent months being terrified that was one of the biggest problems. So there's so much still unfolding about this that, we want to make it very clear. Disney's private property. They can say and do and enforce whatever they'd like to do because it's their property. So if you're somebody that's not comfortable wearing a mask, you don't have to go. You don't need to be there. And you can wait until after those phased reopening restrictions get rescinded. But until then, they require it for anybody that might be 2 years old and older. But Tyler, summertime, the question is, would you feel comfortable going back to Disneyland? Would you feel safe?
I'm not going to feel safe in the first couple of weeks, probably. But I think, hopefully after I see how things go and if things seem to be going okay, then I would take a look. It's kind of too early for me to tell right now. I wouldn't go in the beginning week or two, definitely not. But possibly once I see how things are handled. And I think Gary hit the nail on the head with his last point that he made, which is Disney can be as safe as they want to be, but it's not Disney that I'm worried about. It's the other people that are there. It's Disney is going to do their best, sure. But at the same time, their best they're a hospitality company. That's their job. To enforce rules like this is going against kind of what they stand for in a lot of ways. So that's the area that I'm not really trusting Disney in. I don't think they're going to really enforce the rules as hard as they should. And I really think there needs to be severe consequences for not enforcing the rule or for not obeying the rules. because otherwise people are just going to run all over them, because that's kind of what a lot of Southern Californians have learned, that they can kind of take advantage of the hospitality and the kindness of Disney and the cast members, because they'll bend over backwards to make your day special. And so I think a lot of people have kind of learned that that's what they can kind of take advantage of that, unfortunately. But anyway, yeah, I'm not that interested in going the first couple weeks, but we'll see how things go.
Definitely so. And something that we've seen develop in the last week since the announcement of the reopening of Disneyland is that there is now a petition circulating, change.org petition, that is discussing whether or not Disneyland should reopen on the basis of health and safety, even calling Disneyland selfish and greedy within the petition itself. And that is circulating and has tens of thousands of signatures at this point. Do you guys think that I didn't see any reaction like this with Disney World, which I think is worth noting, but we're seeing it with Disneyland. People are feeling very strongly about Disneyland reopening. Garrett, do you think that this is going to have any effect, this petition is going to have any effect on whether or not Disney decides to reopen the theme parks after all on the West Coast?
I really don't. Not because people's voices aren't valued. It's just because right now there's a big push to, restart the economy, and there's a big push from a lot of, I think the people that are in favor of Disney reopening outweigh the people that don't want it to reopen. And that's just because people want the magic. People want to have that sense of wonder and to feel like a kid again. And also Disney provides that safety, that you escape from the world that you are in and get to enter a world of fantasy and imagination. So people want Disney for that escape. So this petition, I'm not surprised. There's usually a petition about everything nowadays, but I hope that this won't stop Disney, because I know Disney's doing everything they can to promote the safety and health of their facility.
Well, health and safety measures are being put in place by the union, various unions, I should say, plural, multiple unions that are already speaking to their cast members about the return, sharing how health and safety matters are going to be taken in a very delicate way, and more sort of ways in which the company can be safer with their cast members and hopefully help their cast members do their job in a way that won't get them sick necessarily and will help prevent any sort of potential exposure. Something that we did, though, as the Kingdom Report, is we reached out to several cast members and asked specifically, do you feel comfortable returning? Do you think that July 17th is too soon? And we received lots of feedback, and this is certainly not all of it. There's only so much time that we have here to cover it, but the first being from a frontline cast member who says, I honestly don't feel safe if we open. It has placed a difficult conversation about, am I willing to risk my health or my family's health just so I can put food on the table or a roof over my head? How can I confidently say I will be able to deliver that magic, that hope that people want when this looms over my head? Have here from a different cast member says that even with increased precautions and a reduced crowd, there's no guarantee that guests will follow those precautions, and we lack the capacity to effectively enforce anything. Tyler, this goes back to kind of what you were saying. They say that any cast member can tell you a dozen stories about guests who refuse to follow safety protocols because they, quote, paid to be here. End quote. Why would we expect anything different with even higher safety requirements? I can tell you that being a Disney leader for over a decade and somebody that worked in the Disney parks and worked as a frontline person, enforcement does lack to a certain degree, especially when you're handling people who get irate or very upset or very aggressive, because Disney's not in the enforcement business. We've talked about this before. That's not who they are. That's not what they do. They're in the hospitality business. They're here to make magic for people. And so creating this environment where now cast members have to become a virtual enforcement arm of creating an environment where people have to follow new policies and orders all the time that probably several won't want to do, creates undue stress and definitely a lot more pressure on cast members who are coming back to work. So this certainly is not reflective of everything that we heard from cast members. Again, there's only so much time that we have, but we did hear over and over again that the general consensus seems to be it feels too soon for Disneyland to reopen. But we also did hear on the flip side some very valid points in that there are some people saying, if all of this has to take place in order for Disneyland to open, right? If all these restrictions have to be put in place, if all of these new enforcement mechanisms have to be put in place, and we're reopening without a lot of the original experience, why are we reopening? Why are we doing it? And originally, I hadn't necessarily considered that. And I came across a quote shortly after I read that from a cast member that was from Walt Disney. And he said, a place like Disneyland is dedicated to being an environment where no guest can see the outside world. I don't want them to think about the outside world when they're here. And if you're bringing the outside world with you to a certain degree, with all of these new limitations and policies and restrictions, and you're being reminded of that throughout your experience, right? The real world is seeping in because it has to, then maybe they're right. I'm all for Disneyland reopening. I'm all for the parks coming back online. But if it's at the expense of the overall experience and you're just being reminded of so much from the outside, I don't know if it's necessarily something that is going to be beneficial long term, and might just create more unnecessary friction than there needs to be. Producer Kurt, let's give you the last word here. There's a lot of feelings about Disneyland reopening on July 17th. Are you going to feel safe returning this summer?
Well, I pretty much already have a plan of going towards the end of July, early August.
Okay.
I'm so tired of all this doom and gloom. I know it sucks, but I just need to experience some kind of happiness, some kind of fun. I'll wear a full hazmat suit if they want me to. I will adhere to the rules and everything, and I do hope that everyone else does the same, because we're all in this together, Wade.
I've heard that.
Yeah, have you heard that before?
I've heard that
saying?
A time or two during this process. Yeah,
because we are.
Because we are.
Yeah. So I'll pretty much do any rule regulation. I just want a little bit of that magic back for just a little while. I'm not going to say I'm going to go every day, but I want to go back. Restricted hours, anything, just experience some of that magic for a little bit, I want some fun.
You do, and some beignets.
Yeah, and beignets, Mickey beignets.
Absolutely. So you got a trip planned. No matter what camp you're in, no matter what situation you find yourself in terms of planning a trip or feeling that it's just too soon, as Tyler had mentioned, let's just be decent human beings with each other. There's a lot of reason to be divided nowadays, and this seems like a silly thing to be divided over. Let's be respectful of one another, and certainly let's look at each other as an outlet for coming together, an outlet for unity, an outlet for agreeing that the magic of Disney is not an enemy here, that if anything, we've all missed it. We're happy to see it again, even if it is a limited capacity, but doing the right thing by each other is even more important nowadays. We appreciate you so much, Mark, for sending in your question.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.